Section 23. Providing ethnic diversity information, fair housing practice in the market. Introduction. When clients ask the wrong questions. As we move into this section, we step into one of the most uncomfortable, but very real situations agents face. A client looks at you and asks, "Is this a good neighborhood?" or "Is it diverse?" In 2026, how you answer that question can determine whether you are compliant or in violation of fair housing laws. This section is not about avoiding your clients. It's about understanding what you can say, what you should say, and what you must never say. Megan's Law, when disclosure is required. Let's start with a powerful real-world example that shaped disclosure laws. In 1994, a tragic crime involving a young child led to the creation of what is now known as Megan's Law. This law requires that registered sex offenders make their information available to the public. Unlike protected class information, this is something that may need to be disclosed if it is publicly available and relevant to your client's decision. If a licensee knows, through publicly released law enforcement data, that a sex offender resides in a client's area of interest, failing to disclose that information could potentially lead to liability. This creates a clear distinction. You may need to disclose public safety information. You must not provide demographic or protected class information. Understanding that difference is critical. Ethnic diversity questions. The Hannah case. Now let's look at a real case that directly impacts your role as an agent. A family relocating to a new city asked their agent about the ethnic diversity of neighborhoods and schools. The agent refused to provide that information and also did not direct them to outside resources. The family later sued, claiming the agent had a duty to provide that information. The court ruled that the agent did not have a fiduciary duty to provide ethnic diversity information or direct the client to sources for that information. However, and this is important, the court also made it clear that if an agent chooses to provide that information, they do so at their own risk. This is where many agents get into trouble. Why providing ethnic information is risky. Providing information about the racial or ethnic makeup of a neighborhood can be interpreted as steering, even if your intentions are good. For example, if a client asks, "Is this area mostly families like mine?" and you respond with demographic information, you may be influencing their decision based on a protected class. That is a fair housing violation. Even directing a client to certain sources for this information can create risk if it appears you are guiding their decision based on protected characteristics. The safest approach is to redirect the conversation to objective, non-discriminatory information. What you should say. Instead, when faced with these questions, your response should always be neutral and fact-based. For example, I can provide information about schools, crime statistics, and market trends. You may want to research community demographics using public resources. This keeps you compliant while still helping your client make an informed decision. The role of ethics and professional standards. This is where ethics ties directly into fair housing. Just because a client asks a question does not mean you should answer it. Your responsibility is to avoid influencing decisions based on protected classes, provide objective, factual information, maintain neutrality in all communications. Professional organizations, such as the National Association of Realtors, reinforce these standards through their codes of ethics. These codes help define acceptable behavior, promote high standards, and guide agents in complex situations. Advertising risks. Watch your language. Another major risk area is advertising. Statements like 55 and over community or 18 and over only may seem harmless, but they can create serious legal issues. Even in communities that qualify for senior housing exemptions, agents must be careful. The law allows restrictions on occupancy, not ownership. Additionally, the community must meet very specific requirements to qualify as housing for older persons. Misrepresenting these rules in your advertising could result in a violation. This is a key takeaway. MLS listings are advertising, and they must comply with fair housing laws. Real-world application, protecting yourself and your client. Imagine you're showing homes and your client asks about the type of people in the neighborhood. If you answer directly, you risk violating fair housing laws. If you refuse without explanation, you risk losing trust. The correct approach is to redirect. Focus on property features, pricing, schools, and amenities. Encourage the client to do their own independent research. This keeps you compliant while still providing value. The bottom line, stay neutral, stay safe. This section comes down to one core principle, neutrality. You are not there to guide clients based on demographics. You are there to guide them based on facts, data, and property characteristics. In 2026, this is more important than ever. Online discussion question. 1. Why is it risky to provide ethnic diversity information to clients? Answer: because it can be interpreted as steering and may violate fair housing laws. Question 2. What did the Hanna case determine about an agent's duty? Answer: that agents do not have a fiduciary duty to provide ethnic diversity information. Question 3. What is the safest way to respond to questions about neighborhood demographics? Answer: redirect the conversation to objective data and encourage independent research.